The storm had rolled in sometime after midnight, one of those heavy, relentless winter systems that doesn't just
This is outrageous. How could you? Look at this letter. You can't ignore this. Explain yourself now.
outside your bedroom window was silent and white, the streetlights glowing faintly through thick curtains of falling snow. You already knew what you'd see before you even pulled the blinds apart, a driveway swallowed whole. You had work at 8 a.m., a 30-minute commute on a good day. On a morning like this, who knew? If you didn't start clearing immediately, you weren't going anywhere. By 5:55 a.m., you were layered in thermals, heavy coat, gloves, boots crunching into fresh powder as you stepped outside. The cold bit through the fabric instantly, sharp and clean. The snow was deeper than you expected, nearly to your knees in places, drifted high along the garage door. You pulled the cord on your snowblower once. It coughed, twice. On the third pull, the engine roared to life, shattering the stillness of the morning. The machine vibrated in your hands, familiar and powerful, chewing through the first thick wall of snow and launching it in an arc across the yard. There was something satisfying about it, carving clean lines through chaos, watching pavement reappear beneath the white blanket. You worked methodically, back and forth, steam rising from the engine and your breath mixing with the icy air. At exactly 6:03 a.m., headlights flashed behind you. You glanced up, annoyed at first, assuming it was just another neighbor starting their morning. But the lights didn't move past your driveway. They stopped. A large SUV idled at the curb, beams aimed directly at you. The logo on the side door was unmistakable. Homeowners Association. Your stomach tightened. The driver's door opened slowly, dramatically, like someone stepping onto a stage. Out stepped the HOA president, bundled in a long wool coat, clipboard tucked under one arm. Even from across the snow-covered yard, you could see the tight expression on her face. You cut the throttle, the snowblower sputtering down to a rumbling idle. She marched up your driveway, boots sinking awkwardly into the very snow you were trying to clear. "Do you know what time it is?" She called out sharply, not even offering a greeting. You checked your watch out of reflex. 6:05. "Exactly," she snapped, flipping a page on her clipboard. "Community quiet hours are in effect until 8 a.m. You're in violation." You stared at her, waiting for the punchline. It didn't come. "Are you serious?" You asked. "There's a foot of snow. It's still coming down. I have work." "That's not my concern," she replied coolly. Section 4. 3 of the community guidelines clearly states no loud mechanical equipment during quiet hours. You gestured to the driveway, the street, the entire neighborhood buried in white. "This is snow removal. It's not like I'm blasting music." She adjusted her scarf. "Rules apply to everyone." From the corner of your eye, you noticed curtains shifting in neighboring homes. People were watching. Some probably annoyed at the noise. Others, no doubt, annoyed at her. "I'm not trying to disturb anyone," you said, struggling to keep your voice even. "If I don't clear this now, my car's stuck. The plows won't be back until later." She stepped closer, lowering her voice as if that made the situation less absurd. "You should have anticipated the storm and made arrangements." "Made arrangements?" You let out a short laugh. "Like what? Ask the snow to fall after 8? Her lips pressed into a thin line. "If the noise continues, you will be fined. $100 for the first violation. Additional fines for repeated non-compliance." The snowblower idled between you, engine humming like it was impatient. You felt heat rising in your chest despite the freezing air. This wasn't about noise. It was about control. She had complained before about trash cans left out an extra hour, about the shade of paint on your mailbox, about holiday lights being too bright. But this? "You're really going to fine me for clearing snow during a storm?" You asked. "Yes," she said flatly. "That's how rules work." The wind picked up slightly, blowing loose powder across both of you. Snowflakes gathered on her clipboard. Irony hung thick in the air. You looked past her to the road, the main paved road that cut through your property before connecting to the rest of the subdivision. The same road every HOA member used to get to the highway. The only road reliably plowed because you maintained it. A thought flickered in the back of your mind. You killed the snowblower completely. The sudden silence felt heavy. "Fine," you said, stepping back. "I'll stop." She seemed almost surprised by how easily you complied. Then a small, satisfied nod. "Thank you for your cooperation," she replied, already scribbling something on her form. "You'll receive formal notice of the violation." She turned and trudged back down the driveway, slipping slightly on the uneven snow. The SUV door slammed shut, Engine revved, and the vehicle disappeared down the same road, crossing your land under an easement agreement. You stood there alone in the freezing quiet, staring at the half-cleared driveway. Snow continued to fall, soft and relentless. You glanced again at the road, the legal easement, the conditions attached to it. And for the first time that morning, despite the cold, a slow smile spread across your face. By the time you got back inside that morning, your gloves were soaked, your shoulders ached from shoveling, and your driveway was only half as clear as it would have been if you'd been allowed to use the snowblower. The storm hadn't let up. Snow tapped steadily against the windows, as if reminding you that this wasn't over. You set your boots by the door, peeled off your coat, and went straight to the kitchen table instead of making coffee. The irritation from the confrontation still simmered beneath your calm exterior. It wasn't just about the fine. It was about the principle, about someone weaponizing a rule in the middle of a snow emergency. You pulled open the drawer where you kept your property documents. Closing papers, surveys, title insurance, old correspondence. You flipped through the thick stack until you found what you were looking for: the recorded easement agreement tied to your parcel. The subdivision had been developed years after your home was built. The paved road that connected the neighborhood to the main highway cut straight across the edge of your land. Instead of rerouting it, the developer negotiated an access easement. It allowed the residents governed by the homeowners association to use that stretch of road legally. You remembered signing off on certain updates when you bought the property. At the time, it seemed like a minor detail. The agreement included language about maintenance responsibilities, shared cooperation, and reasonable accommodation between parties. That phrase stuck in your mind now. You spread the papers across the table and started reading carefully, not skimming, not assuming, actually reading. Access rights granted contingent upon mutual respect, non-interference with property use, and reasonable accommodation of the grantor's activities. Non-interference with property use. You leaned back in your chair, clearing snow from your own driveway so you could leave for work. That was unquestionably normal property use. Preventing you from doing so, especially during a storm, could reasonably be interpreted as interference. You kept reading. Grantor reserves the right to suspend or modify access in the event of material breach of cooperative terms. Suspend, modify. The words felt heavier than the snowfall outside. You weren't a lawyer, but you weren't reckless either. Before drawing conclusions, you reached for your phone and called the attorney who had handled your closing. It took a few rings before he answered. After explaining the situation, the 6 a.m. confrontation, the threat of fines, the ongoing pattern of nitpicking enforcement, there was a pause on the other end. "Let me ask you something," he said. "Does the easement specify cooperation?" "Yes," you replied, flipping back to the clause. "Mutual respect and reasonable accommodation." He exhaled slowly. "If they're actively interfering with your lawful use of your property, especially in a way that impacts safety or access, that could qualify as a breach of cooperative terms." "So what does that mean?" you asked. "It means," he continued carefully, "you may have grounds to formally notify them of breach and temporarily suspend easement access until the matter is resolved, but it has to be done correctly, in writing." Citing the specific clauses. You stared out the window at the snow-covered road beyond your yard, the same road every HOA resident depended on. Without it, their alternative route was a narrow gravel back trail. In summer, it was inconvenient. In winter, especially with this kind of snowfall, it became nearly unusable. "They rely on that road," you said quietly. "I'm aware," the attorney replied, "which is why leverage exists. But this isn't about retaliation. It's about enforcing your rights proportionally. Proportionally, not emotional, not dramatic, strategic." You spent the next hour drafting a formal notice with your attorney's guidance. The letter was precise, calm, and professional. It referenced the exact clause numbers. It detailed the 6 a.m. enforcement as unreasonable interference during a weather emergency. It cited a pattern of prior conduct that suggested a lack of cooperative accommodation. The final paragraph was simple. Effective immediately, access via the easement road would be suspended pending review and assurance of compliance with cooperative terms. You printed the notice, signed it, and sent a digital copy via certified email to the HOA board. A physical copy would be delivered by courier before the end of the day. When you finished, you felt something shift inside you. Not anger, not triumph. Control. You weren't trying to trap anyone. You weren't trying to escalate. But you weren't going to be pushed around on your own land either. Later that afternoon, the snowfall intensified. Plows moved through main streets, but your private stretch of road remained under your responsibility. You chose not to clear it beyond your own driveway access. There was no legal obligation for you to maintain it for easement holders during a suspension. Your phone buzzed once, then twice. Emails from HOA board members asking for clarification, polite at first, then slightly tense, then urgent. You didn't respond immediately. You let the formal notice speak for itself. By evening, you stepped outside onto your porch. The neighborhood looked peaceful, almost picturesque under the thick white blanket. Porch lights glowed warmly. Smoke curled from chimneys. But beneath that calm surface was a growing realization spreading through the subdivision. The road they depended on crossed land that did not belong to them, and for the first time since the snowblower was silenced at 6 a.m., the balance of power had shifted. The storm wasn't just outside anymore. It was legal.